People dying at the hands of police officers. Is it really what we are being told in our news media? That's what I'll be discussing. Hey, my name is Todd. I want to thank you for tuning into the T.O. Jack channel today. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day. It is literally the day after Father's Day. I've dug up one of my old Father's Day t-shirts created by my kids over 10 years ago, just because it was a gift they gave to me, and I thought it was pretty cool. But what we are discussing today, or what I am talking about more likely, is some of the, what I would call the false history that is being taken place in our country. And it's being spread by the wonderful left-wing news media that does nothing but seems to report a story, and they don't report the whole story. So you get a false truth about what actually takes place. And so I'm specifically talking about the incident in Atlanta that led to the rioters showing up and burning down a business. I'm surmising they burned it down because they called the police on the guy. And that is definitely not justification for burning down somebody's business and all those employees now losing their jobs because they got no place to go to work. But I guess that's probably what their goal was in the first place. So in this case, incident with Rayshard Brooks, what we see is a video. And what the DA of Atlanta is doing is rearing his ugly little head and prosecuting these guys for what? Doing their job? And doing their job as they were trained? Why? I don't get why these cops are being prosecuted. When you look at the video answers for itself. And then when you see the DA just a few weeks prior to explaining that a taser under Atlanta law is a deadly weapon, and now all of a sudden they're prosecuting the police officer because he shoots Rayshard Brooks, who clearly in the video turned and fired the taser at the police officer. Again, under Georgia law, that taser is considered a deadly weapon. Now, could things have happened differently? Absolutely it could have. Rayshard Brooks would still be alive today if he would have just done one thing. And that one thing was when he was being arrested by the police. Instead of fighting them, you submit, you go to jail, they'll book you, they'll do what they need to do on their end, and if you feel you're wrongly arrested, then you get an attorney and you sue the city. It's that simple. And he would still be alive today to be with his girls. But what did we get in the news? We get this whole aspect that the police officers shot Rayshard Brooks in the back as if it was a public execution. The media jumped all on board it, and then the DA comes out and does the same thing. And the sad part to this whole story is not only Rayshard Brooks is no longer alive and able to be with his family, and I feel for the family. Dad's not going to be around. But we also now have a police officer that's lost his job, and another one who's currently suspended and jumped up on charges as well. It's absolutely crazy where our country has come. We're 2 weeks prior to that taser's a deadly weapon, and now all of a sudden that deadly weapon is in the hand of a black man who gets shot by the police. Now it's the police's fault, and it's no longer a deadly weapon. Just watch some of the other videos out there. You will see other police officers discussing how a taser, basically when it works, will incapacitate somebody for around 5 seconds. Some cases I've seen a little bit more. As a former paramedic who actually saw tasers being deployed on combatant individuals, I can tell you that they are incapacitated for a period of time, and it is definitely long enough for the police officer to gain control and get them into cuffs, and everything goes on. I was fortunate enough to never go on an incident where the taser actually resulted in somebody having a cardiac arrest or dying from it. And I know there are cases of that. I also know there are cases where you can shoot the taser at somebody and it won't do anything to them. I've actually witnessed that on one occasion. But I'm not discussing the ins and the outs today of the taser. What I am discussing is the incident that took place in Atlanta, where a police officer who's running after the guy, keep in mind, Rayshard Brooks started fighting with the police officers. Watch the video. It is clear what's taking place. He did not want to be arrested. He made the decision he was going to fight and run. And in the process of fighting, he managed to get a hold of one of the police officers' taser. He also managed to break loose from both those police officers and take off running. And what do the police do? Well, they've got now a guy running from them. And so they pursue like police officers are supposed to do. And under Georgia law, they are now running after an individual who has, under Georgia law, a deadly weapon. And this guy, Rayshard Brooks, running from the police, turns, fires the taser, and in the video you will see the police officer then fires. And yes, he gets shot in the back, but it's a shot in the back because the guy had turned and fired the taser. And that's why he was shot in the back. It wasn't like the news media is pitching out that he was just running away and he wasn't looking back at the police and the police shot him dead because he's running from him. That is nowhere near what happened. And this stupid DA of Atlanta should not be charging these police officers. Why? Anybody in that situation would have been justified in pulling the trigger. Yeah, in most situations, like my own self, the guy's running from me. I'm not going to chase after him. Why? I'm not a police officer. It's not my job to put those guys in custody. And that is the job of the police officer. They are supposed to protect the public by getting the criminals off the street. And in this case, Rayshard Brooks was a criminal. Let's look at it. Number one, he was passed out. I'm not sure why he was passed out, but he was definitely passed out from intoxicants. How do I know that? Because the police did a field sobriety and they were putting him under arrest for being under the influence of intoxicants. What intoxicant it was, I'm not sure. Could have been drugs, could have been alcohol. Either way, he was under the influence of intoxicants. For all I know, it could have been even a prescription medication, but he was still under arrest for being in possession of intoxicants or under the influence. And then he chose to fight. Physically fight the police. And now he's committing acts of battery on the police officer. Now, I don't know what Atlanta law is like, but in most cases, attacking the police is a felony charge. So now he breaks free and he's running. And so he's a felon running from the police. But he also has control of, under, again, Atlanta law or under Georgia law, a deadly weapon. And the police do their job and pursue the criminal who's now running with a deadly weapon. And Rayshard Brooks could have stopped at that moment and just submitted to the police. And all would have been well, although he would have accrued additional charges. And he could have had his day in court and he could have fought those charges in court. Not saying he would have won, but he could have fought those charges in court. He would have had his day in court. But he chose to take it to the next level and turn and fire the taser at the police officer. Now I'm going to play the what if game since the Attorney General of Atlanta likes to play the what if game. What if that taser actually made contact on the police officer in a location other than in his body armor and would have operated? and continue pulling the trigger so the taser activates. And now that police officer is being incapacitated. Keep in mind, it looked like on the video, the police officer was running with his firearm in his hand. And why was he running with the firearm in his hand? Because Rayshard Brooks had the taser. Under Georgia law, a deadly weapon. And had that taser that Rayshard Brooks fired made contact, incapacitated the police officer, Rayshard Brooks, I'm assuming, would have gotten control of the police officer's firearm. That is a possibility. The other possibility is it could have worked, incapacitated the police officer, and Rayshard Brooks continued running away. That is always the case. But it sounds like what they were wanting was for the police to let him go and on a new day show up at his house because they got his car, they got his ID, they knew who he is, and arrest him on another day. But what makes these people think that the police showing up the next day would have made him more compliant to being under arrest? He didn't want to be under arrest that night. So what makes them think he would have been non-violent on another day? See, we can play this what-if game all day long, but what we need to look at are the facts. And the facts are just as I presented. Rayshard Brooks fought with the police. Rayshard Brooks was under arrest. Rayshard Brooks got a hold of a taser. Rayshard Brooks ran from the police. Rayshard Brooks turned and fired the taser at the police officer, which caused the police officer to respond automatically by pulling the trigger of his deadly weapon. And he shot Rayshard Brooks. Now, there's this whole situation where the DA is saying the police officer kicked the man when he's down on the ground. What I saw in the video is a guy who's still running and coming up to Rayshard Brooks, and not a guy laying a kick blow into Rayshard Brooks. Now, conveniently, the DA doesn't want to play the rest of the video so you can actually see how the police officers operated post the shooting. Maybe someday somebody will file a FOIA and we'll get to see the whole video of what actually took place that night on the police body cams, on the other cameras that are seen around Wendy's that had some of the footage that was the DA has shown. All I can do is go off of the footage that I have seen, and it does not look like the police officers were beating the guy as he was shot and down on the ground. And in fact, from what I can gather, it looked like the police officers jumped in and tried to save the guy's life even after they shot him. And so now, not only is one life lost and destroyed, but now the DA is destroying the lives of two other guys who did nothing but do their job. Be like arresting a truck driver for dropping off goods at Lowe's for no other reason than he dropped off goods at Lowe's. These police officers did their job. So where do we go from here? What needs to take place is we need to stop criminalizing the police officers for doing their jobs, and we need to allow them to do their jobs. That's why they're there. They're there to go after the criminals. They're there to lock up the criminals. But what these people really ultimately want, I believe, is a lawless state. And in some cases, they might just get it, because we got people like Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle who are bending over to these people and don't seem to care. Sad state for America. It truly is. But when we start looking at the facts of most of these police shootings of black men, you will discover that they were justified in their shooting. And had these people made other choices, they would be alive and well today. Now, by all means, I'm not forgetting the cases where the police have wrongfully shot somebody. Like the one, I think she was a college student, where they knocked on the wrong door and broke her, or didn't knock on the door, they broke her door down, and she met somebody coming into her house like any other person would who has a firearm. She met him with a firearm, and they killed her. And ultimately, the police were in the wrong house, serving a warrant on the wrong premises. And I'm not forgetting those incidences. But what I am frustrated with is this cry over all the black men who get shot. But they're not crying over the white guys that get shot. They're not crying over the Asians that get shot. They're not crying over the Latinos that get shot. They're crying over the black man who gets shot. And I'm referring to justified shootings. Why aren't these same people crying for all the people that lose their lives every single day to violence at the hands of other people of the same color in their own community? They're not talking about that. Why aren't they crying over the loss of the millions of black babies that have been killed by Planned Parenthood and the abortion process? It seems like hypocrisy to me. You're going to cry over the black man who gets shot justified by the police, but you're not going to cry over the loss of millions of lives who have been taken away through abortion? Or the tens of thousands of lives who have been lost every day in the United States at the hands of black on black crime or white on white crime involving gun violence and shooting? Why aren't they crying after that? Oh yeah, I forgot. They want to get rid of all firearms. Just like the poor guy here in Portland who was attacked by the mob called Antifa. So he pulls his firearm and then he gets indicted, gets convicted. Now he's lost his gun rights. Hopefully his appeals will go through. Hopefully he'll get his rights back because he was justified in pulling that firearm that day. He didn't shoot anybody, but he pulled it. They backed off and he got away. And then he got arrested for the police for brandishing a firearm. And then they gave him a bunch of other charges like menacing. Ultimately, some stupid judge or jury in this state convicted him. Wrongfully convicted him because he was justified in his actions. But I guess that's the state of the affairs of our society today. We go around, we moan and we groan, and we keep spreading false narratives and spreading false lies based on partial truths. And that's what the left is doing very well, and that's what the news media does very well today. Continues to spread a false story because they don't want the whole truth. Just as they didn't want to hear the actual truth that surrounded the impeachment of Donald Trump. And that's the bottom of the line. So those are my thoughts for today. I want to thank you for taking time to watch the video. If you managed to get through this whole video, roughly 17 minutes worth, I want to thank you. Please hit like and subscribe if you would. Put your comments in the link below. I'd love to see what your comments are about this video. Take care. God bless. We'll catch you next time. Hi, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. Please hit the like button below, and if you would, hit the subscribe link up here, and take some time to watch one of my other videos. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day. God bless, and take care of yourself.